3, 2, 1.
In other words, it's really good right from the start. Chevy Equinox, connected by OnStar.
Guardians, protect me.
Folks, a little more on the Democrats' lawfare against former President Trump and other matters. We welcome the great John Ratcliffe, former director of national intelligence during the Trump administration. John, that's not a new subject. You know, after today's news, I still can't figure out why in New York State, in order to exercise your constitutional right of appeal, you have to put up a bond, any bond, whatever, or cash. But the question for you is, how do you read this Biden lawfare attack on Trump? I mean, some of us, myself included, think it's completely backfired, no matter what these juvenile delinquent local judges say. What do you think?
Well, Larry, I think if you heard President Trump's comments coming out of the courthouse today, one of the things that he said was that he highlighted, which was right, is that, you know, they waited almost 3 years to start all of this. And they waited because they didn't think he was going to run, and they didn't think he could run and win. And only when it became obvious that both of those things were happening did all of this ramp up. And because of that, Larry, because they waited so long, everything that we're seeing is so unprecedented. And what I mean by unprecedented is not just the fact that it's a case against a former president of the United States, but unprecedented legal theories, novel legal theories, and unprecedented coordination between a White House and state prosecutors, and unprecedented prosecutorial discretion or abuse of discretion in all of these cases where you talked about it with Larry Jarrett, in the Alvin Bragg case where they took an expired misdemeanor and somehow turned it into 34 felony counts under some novel legal theory that nobody can understand. The case with Judge Engoron, where no damages and no victims, and yet a $500 billion liability finding that was made, in fact, before there was any testimony in the case. And that's before you even get to the Jack Smith federal prosecutor who has violated the federal principles of prosecution every single day. The principle that says that a prosecutor shall take no action, the timing of which will impact an election, and every single day, everything he does is to impact the election with the timing of his actions. So my take on it, though, is the one thing I maybe would disagree with some of the conversation is, and even President Trump said that he thought these cases were making him more popular. I don't think they're making President Trump more popular. I think they're opening people's eyes. He's more sympathetic as a figure who's being unjustly prosecuted. What's making President Trump more popular is Joe Biden. Joe Biden's unmitigated failures, both domestic policies and foreign policy failures across the board, are making President Trump more popular every day. People are longing for a return of those policies and the results that they had in the Trump administration. And I don't see that changing over the next 7-8 months before the election.
Well, John, the other thing that's interesting to me, even today in his press conference, Mr. Trump's press conference outside the courtroom, which, by the way, he used no notes, no nothing. He just spoke and took questions for anybody that doubts his energy and cognitive acumen. But he also, John Ratcliffe, worked in the issues. The border, the inflation, drill baby drill. He mentioned Afghanistan. I mean, I think that's pretty smart, you know? In other words, not only the legal protests and all the juvenile delinquent judges in New York State, AGs, and all that ridiculous crowd, but he got in the key issues that you just referred to, where Biden is flunking. Now, I think that's pretty darn smart by our former boss.
Well, I think it is, because what it does is, this election, unlike 2020, allows for a side-by-side comparison For the critics of Trump who didn't like certain things about him or the way he went about business, didn't really know what they were getting with Joe Biden. We were told what Joe Biden was going to deliver, but now everyone sees that he has been a miserable failure on every single one of those issues that you talked about, Larry. And I mean that in the sense of, Americans suffering here at home and Americans standing and America's allies suffering abroad because of the foreign policy failures that have continued. And so President Trump is very smart to, whenever he gets the chance, to line up the side-by-side comparisons. And again, I think people remember now what they loved about the Trump administration, and they see that Joe Biden can't deliver the things that he promised 3 or 4 years ago.